Okay, so welcome back. And on this one, we need to talk about gates, pitches, and steps. So if you go to the data module that you have right here, we are going to talk about gates, pitches, and steps. How about this ones? Now, we could have already used the gates and steps on previous videos, but we're going to talk more in depth about them. So the first one we are going to discuss is going to be the gates, because it's the easiest one to understand. Now, we know what a gate is, and we already talked about what a gate does in previous videos. A gate is an instruction that it knows how to open, how to close, and they have it has a shorter or longer sustain, and we could even use them as a trigger depending on where we are connecting them. Now, this envelope has a pre-chord of a gate. So if we press a key, it's going to open and close every time that we press key. If I connect this, I play a key, and notice that this one is not doing anything, right? So every time I press a key, you can see the yellow indicator, the gate is opening, and it's letting the oscillator sound just go through, and then opens and closes. So what if I disable this? I'm going to press a key and nothing happens. We can see right here the yellow indicator that I'm pressing a key. So what we can do, we can bring a gate, and the gate is like a step sequencer for gate. And the instruction is going to be very simple. I'm going to bring an oscilloscope so we can see what it's doing behind the scenes, and I'm going to just connect it right here. Of course, this is not a very good visual instruction, so we can go to mode right here, and it's going to go much slower. So we can see that every time that it's going on, we go from 0 to 1, and we see kind of a square, and it has a sustain stage. So because this is a gate, of course. So if I disable them, I disable all, we have nothing. And if I enable all, notice what we have. We have something different, right? Okay, so let's see how this sounds. I'm going to disable this one, and maybe I'm gonna enable this one. All right, so something simple. Now what I want to do, I want to trigger the envelope of this one. And at some point, I want to maybe go to the level, and I want to kind of maybe control the game just a little bit better. Maybe we can bring the gain and volume right here, right? So I can go down. All right. So what do we want from this one, right? Right now, we are just opening and closing the envelope on demand, but we are doing it with the gates. Right, and it opens, it has a sustain stage. In this case, since we are using an AR, we don't have a sustain stage. But if we bring a different envelope that has a sustain, that it knows how to sustain, it will just sustain a little bit better. Right, but that's, not the important part right here. I'm just going to go back to my AR. Of course, we can change the steps to whatever we want. But right here, you have different modes. And why is that? Now, of course, if I go right here and I put the step right here, notice that now this one is much longer. So what we are doing, we are tying the step number 7, 8, and 1. We are just doing a tie. So, of course, the sustain is going to be much longer. This is opening is much longer, and it's closing much after. Right. So right here you have the modes. Maybe you don't want this. So what you can do a pulse. Now the pulse is just going to be a little bit shorter, but we will not be able to do a tie, right? We cannot do a tie. Then you have the other one, the other mode, it's going to be the trigger. So the trigger, it looks pretty much the same. So I'm going to maybe just do one. It looks pretty much like the other one, like the gate. And it's going to pretty much, again, work the same way. But notice that it is triggering and it's opening the envelope, right? It's triggering right here, triggering right here. So it's a little bit shorter. That's why we can see right here the line. It's like a gate, but it's a little bit shorter. We are not doing that tie. Right, so that's the difference between them. Now, of course, you can choose that you need to select a different mode. Depends on what you're doing right here. Now, when you select this one, you can go right here and select the mode on gate, pulse, or trigger. And another thing that you can do, you can make this one really long. You can go right there and go up to 64 steps. And you can go like this, and maybe randomly just do something like that and just get some kind of a random behavior, right? Which is cool, sometimes. Alright, but this is not the most important part. I'm going to go back to 8 and just make it normal size. Maybe there, maybe a little bit less. And what is important right now, we know how this works and it's pretty basic. But what I care is about how is this moving. So every time that we put it, this is following a motion. It's starting right here and goes all the way up to the 8. And at some point, it's going to restart, right? It's just a loop. So who's deciding how this should go? Well, it's the precord of the face, of the device face. So right here is saying use device face to drive module's face. So it's following this precord, the face we have right here. And we already talked about face on the previous video. So what we can do, we can disconnect this, but the main problem is that if we do so, it's going to be stuck on step number 1, because there's nothing providing an instruction in how this one should move. So what we can do, we can bring the face in and reconnect it, and of course, it's going to be using the device face again. But you know, what's the point? Well, what you can do right here, if you use this one, if you want to change the speed, you can go to the device face that you have right here, and you can change it to make it faster. But the thing is that if you have different modules using the same device face, it's just gonna do the same for all. So what I want right here is to control it independently. I want independent control. And of course you can do it. The default is 1 bar for the device face. I'm gonna disconnect it and I'm gonna bring that face in. Now on the face module, when I connect this, of course we're gonna get that. We have a lot of modules, so we can mess with the face and we can alter how the face is going to work and affect this gate. So one of the modules is gonna be the scaler. Maybe I'm gonna put it right here. So notice, as soon as we get it, the ratio is 2 to 1. So it's gonna go faster. And as we go up in ratio, it's gonna go much faster. Or we can go much slower. If you go to 1 and then right here, maybe 2, it's gonna go slower. Now I'm gonna go there and just do 2, 1. And then of course you can use the rate to shift the tempo or the rate, how fast it's gonna go. Right, so super simple. Now, at the end of the day, what we care is how we can mess with these controls. And when you're working with the face right here, you have all of these modules, so you can do a lot of things. At this point, right now, maybe I'm gonna go to 1 so we can see it go slower. It's just following this motion. Now, if I press a key on my keyboard, of course, this is just playing the note, but this one is not restarting. It's like not listening to the keyboard. So we have all of these modules to mess with what's going on right here. In this case, we have the reset. So we can bring the reset, and this one is listening to incoming notes. So when I press a key, it's going to reset the phase. So we're going to start from the step number 1 every time that we press a key. So that's how we can, restart the phase. All right. So notice that the reset has this precord right here, and this is why it's allowing us to press a key and of course reset whatever is that we are doing right here. But you could use whatever other instruction that works as a trigger to kind of restart or kind of maybe let's say randomize whatever is that you're doing. And we can even bring a gate just to do this, connect it right here, make it a trigger and do something, something like that. And this is just going to work on a different way, right? So you can, do a lot of experimentation right here. Now, right now, opening and closing the envelope with the gate is just a little bit annoying. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go right here and I'm going to bring it something else and I'm going to disconnect it from here because I want to kind of listen this when I play a key. Well, okay, so what can we do with this? Well, we can bring to input and output and we can use a modulator. I'm going to go to modulator, connect it right here. So now we're going to turn this into a modulation. Let me just put this right here. So now this one is a modulation. So we can do whatever we want. Maybe in this case right now, I want to go to filters and just bring maybe a filter. Why not? I'm going to go with it right there and just, connect it right here. And we can use this instruction to do something or, whatever we want in this case. Now I'm going to go right here and maybe use default. Every time I go right here, we're going to do every time it goes to on, we are just going to get that. And of course, we can use a gate. It's just going to stay open much longer. Or if we do a trigger, it's just going to be, a little bit smaller. Now, in this case, I'm going to go to a gate, right? I'm going to go right there. Okay, and I'm going to maybe just change the pattern. Just going to go and maybe do it like that. I just like that. Now, if I press something, this is going to give us kind of a pattern because we are just doing the default right here. The modulation is just going right here and doing the default. I'm doing like, something like that, plus 9600. And we get something cool, it's just a cool sound. Maybe I'm gonna do something like that, something like that. Okay. And just with a simple thing, we are just creating a cool sound out of nothing, out of a triangle. Right. So let's talk about the other thing, the next element, which is going to be the steps. So let's talk about the steps right now. So the steps is going to work pretty much the same, but we have a different behavior for this one. So right now, maybe I'm going to put it right there. And if I connect the default, what we get by default, notice that the instruction is just way, way different. So the gate knows how to go from 0 to 1, right? It's like an on and off. But this one can go into some in-betweens. And we can, of course, select how much we can go up, how much we can go down. We can even use it as a gate by going all the way up and all the way down. So now we are just pretty much doing what the gate is doing. And that is how, how it looks. If I disconnect it, the other one, we can see it a little bit better, right? So pretty easy. But of course, maybe if you wanted to use it like that, just use a gate. Maybe you're going to do something like that. Now, the main purpose of this one is to, provide an instruction to do some modulation or do whatever we want. Now, this one has a plus and a minus, which means that it can go to negative and it can go to positive. And we gonna see it right here now going into negatives or positives. Now, of course, why it's not going is because we need to do it manually. If I go up and then go down or go up and go down, it's just going to go up and down. And this is very important because if you're using as a modulator, now the modulation is going to change. It's going to go to positive values and then go to negative values. And you get a different result from your sound, of course. So, of course, this one works with the device phase. Well, now, what if I wanted to synchronize it with the gates? Because right now, notice that they are a little bit, not synchronized. So I'm going to disconnect this one and we are going to use the same thing we have right now. And both will go at the same speed, same fashion. And they will even reset every time I play a key. Right. So what else? Maybe I want to do something different. So remember that the phase section will give you a lot of tools so you can mess with the instruction. So maybe what I want to do, I want to go in reverse. Instead of starting from here, I want to start from the end and then go back. So I'm going to disconnect this one right there. And I'm just going to provide the same instruction, but I'm just going to reverse it. So now this one goes forward and this one goes backwards. So pretty simple. Now, at the end of the day, we want to use it to do something. So we can go to I/O and I'm going to maybe go here. And I'm going to do the same trick. I'm going to connect it to a modulator out. And maybe we can modulate something like, I don't know, maybe something like this. Maybe the filter would be a good idea to modulate. Now, we need to do something cool right here. Maybe I'm going to go and do something like that. Let me just change the values. Right, I want to do something simple. I don't want to be very aggressive. Right here, I'm just kind of adding an accent right there. So if we try to hear how this sounds, remember we are modulating this one with this instruction. Now, of course, this one is not advancing. I'm going to connect it. Now, if I make it a little bit more aggressive, and I start separating these values a little bit further, this is just starting to be a little bit more aggressive, right? Right. Now, what we can do in the case of steps, we can use something, and we have the same option right here with the step count. We can go up to a lot, or just maybe use 8. You can use up to 64 steps. But right here, you have the bipolar, which is what we are doing. But you also have the option of the interpolation. And the interpolation, what it will do, it will smooth the corners. Now, right now, I'm going to go right there and disable the interpolation. Let me just disable this. Go back. And we can see how the modulation is going. Right now, I'm just going to go into a lot so we can see it going. And notice this just, again, the instruction is kind of all the way up and then down, but it's kind of a square. That's the instruction we are providing, right? We can see it right there on the modulation. Now, maybe this is a little bit too aggressive, right? And it's going to sound aggressive, which sometimes is fine. But maybe I want to smooth the corners. So the interpolation is going to do that. It's just going to smooth the corners. So now the instruction, instead of being a square, is more like a kind of a triangle, let's say. It's just, smoothing the corners. And you can, of course, change how this sounds. It's a pretty simple module. Everything works, they're very similar at the end of the day in how we can, we can use them. Of course, they have different options and we can do different things. That's, a good thing. Now then you have the other one, and the other one on the data is going to be the pitches. So I'm going to bring this one right here, just make it a little bit bigger because it's just a little bit too small. Maybe I'm going to go and do it like this. Now, when you expand it, of course, you can see what is going on right here just a little bit better. Now, this one is on the same category than data, but it works very different than gates steps. Of course, this one works like this, it's kind of a step sequencer, but this one, instead of outputting a trigger or a gate like this one, or a modulation instruction like this one, they are very similar. This one is going to output a gate, a pitch. It's going to output a pitch. So what we can do, we can create an arpeggio with this and then just connect this to whatever module that we are using, in this case, the oscillator that listens to pitch, and we can disconnect the keyboard from this oscillator. So now this one will just take control. And for now, I'm just going to go and do something like this. And I'm going to go all the way up. So now if I press something, I'm going to go a little bit down on this modulation. But as I'm pressing a key, and we get pretty much the same thing we are doing a lot with the faults right now, but that's fine. Now what happens if I start, doing something like that? So this one will, of course, change what is going on with the pitch. Right, so let me just put something useful right here because right now it sounds like crap. All right, so this is what I have right here. If I press it, this is what we're going to get. This is going to control the pitch, and of course, on each step, and right now we have 8, it's just going to provide the pitch instruction to the oscillator and tell it what to do, what we want to listen. Right, pretty simple, right? So at the end of the day, this one is very similar to the steps and the gates, because notice that they are in the same section, and because this one is going to follow some amount of steps, and it will follow a device phase in this case. So what we can do, if we wanted to, we can just synchronize everything and connect it right there. And we can do something like that, grabbing the reset, connecting it right here. And now they're all kind of on the same groove, let's say. Now, what I'm doing right now, I'm just pressing a key, any key. I'm going to higher keys. And the only thing that is affecting the sound is the keyboard right here for the filter. If I go to higher keys, the filter is just opening a little bit more. But if I go to lower keys, it's just closing a little bit more. So if I disable this and go to high keys, it's just going to open the same way. Okay, so how does this work? So whenever you bring it, you will have this line, and notice that this line right here is like the middle C. It will start in C. So if you go all the way at the top, you have the next C. So you have all your notes in between, the white keys and the black keys, and then until you get to the next C. So this one is a root, a C note, and this one it's a C note right here. And then you can go, of course, to negatives. You can go all the way down, and you can go up to 1 octave down. So if I do the same, I press something, there's this one is going to go way lower. Right. So like I told before, you can see the 1 octave right here can go up to 1 up and up to 1 down. Pretty simple. Now this control right here is going to control how many octaves you want to see on display. So if I go to 2, we can see now 2 octaves up and 2 down. Now the thing is, of course, you need to make the control, the module a little bit bigger just to see what you are doing. If not, just going to be a little bit confusing because everything is so small. But in this case, I'm just going to go here, just leave it right there, and just use 1 up and 1 down. Of course, you can go to steps and change the amount of steps, and you can go just like the other ones up to 64, right? So very simple. In this case, I'm just going to go to 8. Of course, you can go much less and do just 1, 2 kind of a thing. But in this case, I just want my arpeggio, so I'm going to do 8. Right. Pretty simple, right? Just very, very easy to use. Now, one cool thing that you can do with this, whenever you go right here and select it, you can do shift, right? Shift. And you just move it, and you can offset the note value. So this one is going to be like in between of the white and the black key, right? So if I play something, notice it's offset it. So we can offset the value which is something super cool, super useful. In this case, I'm just gonna go right there and just leave it right there. Alright, so they are very simple modules to understand. Now, of course, you can use them whatever you want, offset timings, create very creative patches. You can do amazing things with this. And just, to do something and maybe finish with this video, and we can maybe try to get something good out of this. We have already an arpeggio going on, so maybe I want to kind of skew a little bit of this one so we can get something, more harmonics. We can get something more that sounds a little bit more pleasing. Maybe I'm going to be doing a sine wave. Why not? I'm going to do a little bit of phase modulation since now we know how this works. Alright. Now maybe we can bring a little bit of LFO. I'm going to go right here and just do an LFO. We can turn this into maybe a triangle. Why not? And I can select this and do a little bit of resonance. Maybe we can go up and down on the resonance, maybe some amount like that. And I'm just gonna go and maybe do it like this. And this is gonna give us a rhythm, kind of a rhythm pattern. Right. So of course, everything sounds not that good when we don't use effects. So let's just bring delay, and I'm gonna use a default patch. And then I'm going to bring the reverb. And we're going to do pretty much what we've been doing so far on all of the sections. Just to prove that if whatever sound source that you're creating right here sounds cool, whatever it is that you do right here is just going to make it sounded better, right? If I go to delay and I go to reverb and not changing anything of the default controls, we kind of we get a good kind of a. This could be a background sound, right? Just an intro, maybe like an intro. So if you like and you find these tiny little guides useful, you can just like and subscribe. Of course, you can go to Patreon if you can afford it. You can buy me a coffee. That would be nice. And of course, if you like this, leave a comment. I love to read comments. And if, maybe no one is commenting and I get no likes and I get no views out of these videos, why doing them, right? But always remember that liking and maybe even adding a comment is important for me because that's how I know that you like this type of videos. If no one is watching this, why making them? All right, so remember to like, subscribe, or even leave a comment. All right, so see you on the next one. On the next one, we will talk about blend, mixer, pan, and stereo width.